The morning shift at Kepler Station began like any other, with the artificial sun slowly brightening the main corridors and the gentle hum of life support systems creating their familiar background music. Commander Zethka, of the Vorthan Empire, adjusted his forearms as he reviewed the daily reports, his scaled hide reflecting the soft blue lighting of his office. Another quiet rotation, he muttered to himself, scrolling through the overnight security logs. Nothing unusual had happened in the past 6 months since the peace treaty was signed. The war between the Galactic Federation and the Hegemony Alliance had finally ended, leaving border stations like Kepler as neutral meeting points for trade and diplomacy. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Commander," came the voice of his assistant, Yila, a graceful Etherian with translucent skin that shimmered like water. "We have a new arrival requesting temporary residence permit. Species unknown." Zethka's head spines lifted slightly in curiosity. Unknown species were rare but not unheard of. The galaxy was vast, and new civilizations occasionally emerged from unexplored sectors. "Send them in." The door slid open with a quiet hiss, and in walked a creature that made Zethka do a double take. The being stood upright on 2 legs, had only 2 arms, and was covered in what appeared to be artificial skin-colored fabric. No visible scales, fur, or natural armor. No extra limbs or sensory organs, just a simple, almost primitive-looking biped. "Greetings," the creature said in surprisingly clear Standard Galactic. "I am Marcus Chen, representing the species called humans, from a planet called Earth. I'm requesting permission to establish a small trading post here, while my people explore this region of space." Zethka studied the creature carefully. Marcus appeared completely unremarkable. Average height by galactic standards, no visible weapons, no threatening posture. His skin was a warm brown color, and strange hair grew only from the top of his head. Most peculiar were his eyes, which lacked the multiple pupils or light-sensing organs that most intelligent species possessed. "Human," Zethka repeated the word slowly. "I am not familiar with your species. Where exactly is this Earth located?" Marcus smiled, showing flat white teeth instead of the sharp cutting implements most carnivorous species possessed. "It's about 47 light-years from here, in what you probably call the Outer Rim. We're relatively new to faster-than-light travel." "I see." Zethka made notes on his tablet. "And what do your people trade in?" "Whatever others need," Marcus replied with a casual shrug. "We're adaptable. Food, basic materials, information, entertainment, simple manufactured goods, nothing too exciting." The commander found himself relaxing. This human seemed refreshingly honest and straightforward compared to the usual complex diplomatic games played by most species. "Very well. I'll approve a temporary permit. You may establish a small trading post in Section C, Level 7. Standard fees apply." "Thank you, Commander. I appreciate your hospitality." Over the following weeks, Marcus quickly became a familiar sight around the station. His small trading post, simply called Earth Goods, attracted steady customers with its novelty items and surprisingly good prices. He sold strange foods like something called chocolate, that many species found addictively pleasant, along with colorful fabrics and simple tools that worked better than expected. What impressed the station residents most was Marcus's personality. Unlike most traders who were pushy or aggressive, he was calm and friendly. He learned the names of regular customers, asked about their families, and never seemed to get angry even when deals fell through. Children of various species would often gather around his shop to hear his stories about Earth and its strange animals. "He tells the most incredible tales," said Dr. Milaka, a insectoid Chitauri who ran the station's medical bay. "Stories about creatures called elephants that are larger than shuttlecraft, and tiny creatures called ants that can carry 50 times their own weight." "Probably exaggerating," replied Security Chief Brontax, a heavily armored Corvan whose species valued strength above all else. "Though I admit, his people's food is remarkable. That coffee substance he gave me actually improved my reaction time." The human had been on the station for 3 months when the first real test came. A group of Skarn pirates, known for their vicious raids and complete disregard for treaty laws, arrived, demanding tribute. The Skarn were 8-foot-tall reptilian beings with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. Their ship bristled with weapons, and their reputation for violence preceded them wherever they went. Captain Vrakth himself led the boarding party into the station's main plaza. His massive form cast shadows over the smaller beings as traders and residents quickly moved out of his way. "This station now pays tribute to the Skarn Brotherhood," he announced in his booming voice. 50,000 credits, or we start collecting payment in blood." Commander Zethka arrived with a small security detail, but everyone knew it was hopeless. The station's defenses were minimal, designed only to handle small disputes between traders. Against a fully armed pirate ship, they stood no chance. "The station operates under neutral treaty law," Zethka said, trying to project more confidence than he felt. "You have no authority here." Vracht laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Treaties mean nothing in the void, little commander. You have exactly 1 hour to gather our payment, or we begin taking what we want by force." As the pirates spread out through the station, making threatening gestures toward the terrified civilians, Marcus emerged from his shop. He had been watching the confrontation from his doorway. And now, he walked forward with the same calm manner he showed when greeting customers. "Excuse me," he said politely to Captain Vracht. "I couldn't help but notice you seem upset about something." The massive pirate captain turned to look down at the small human. Several other Skarn laughed at the sight of this tiny, soft-looking creature daring to address their leader. Vracht's eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus, taking in his lack of visible weapons or armor. "And what exactly do you think you can do about it, little pink thing?" Vracht growled, his claws extending threateningly. Marcus kept his friendly smile. "Well, I was hoping we could work something out. Maybe you'd be interested in some Earth goods instead of credits? I have some items that might interest warriors like yourselves." The other pirates burst into louder laughter. One of them, a scarred female named Zessa, stepped closer to Marcus. "You think you can buy off the Skarn Brotherhood with trinkets? We take what we want, and what we want is 50,000 credits." "I understand." Marcus nodded reasonably. "But before you decide, would you mind if I showed you something? It might change your mind about the value of human merchandise." Vracht was curious despite himself. This strange little creature showed no fear whatsoever, which was unusual. Most species either cowered or tried to fight when confronted by the Skarn. This human was doing neither. "You have 2 minutes," he growled. Marcus walked back toward his shop and returned carrying a small, rectangular device about the size of a book. It had a dark screen on one side and appeared to be made of some kind of metal and glass composite. "This is a human data pad," he explained, holding it casually. "It contains some information about my people that you might find interesting." "Information?" Zessa scoffed. "We don't need your primitive databases." "Oh, this isn't primitive at all," Marcus said cheerfully. "In fact, it's probably the most advanced piece of technology on this station. But that's not what I wanted to show you. It's what's recorded on it." He tapped the screen a few times, and it lit up with a soft glow. "You see, before I came here, I was in the military. We call it the Terran Defense Force, and during my service, I participated in a few engagements that were, well, let's say they were memorable enough that they got recorded." Captain Vracht's interest was piqued despite himself. The device in the human's hands did indeed look more sophisticated than anything he had seen in this backwater station. "What kind of engagements?" he asked. "The kind where my people had to defend themselves," Marcus replied, still maintaining his pleasant tone. "I have some battle logs on here that might give you a better idea of what humans are capable of when we're properly motivated." He looked around at the crowd that had gathered, including Commander Zethka and many of the station's residents who were watching nervously from a safe distance. "Of course, most people think these logs are fake. They say the numbers don't make sense, that the tactics described are impossible, that no species could actually do the things described in these reports." Vracht's predatory instincts were fully engaged now. This human was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, and he was beginning to suspect it might be the former. "Show me," he commanded. Marcus tapped the screen again, and a holographic display appeared above the device. The image showed what appeared to be a space battle, with dozens of ships engaged in combat. The perspective seemed to be from inside one of the ships, and a calm voice was providing a tactical report. "Battle log 847 Alpha," the recorded voice began. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Chen, aboard TDF destroyer, relentless reporting on the engagement at Proxima Station. Enemy force consists of approximately 200 vessels of the Zektar Horde. Friendly forces number 37 ships. Several of the pirates glanced at each other. Those odds were impossible for any victory except perhaps a strategic retreat. The holographic display showed the human ships moving in formation, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns. What happened next made Captain Vracht's blood run cold. The human ships didn't retreat or try to escape. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the much larger enemy force, initiating Doctrine 7. Marcus's recorded voice continued calmly. All ships switched to ramming speed. Target enemy command vessels for maximum disruption. This is a no-survivors engagement. The display showed human ships smashing directly into enemy vessels, their hulls designed to punch through armor plating like bullets through paper. But what was even more terrifying was the precision of it. Each human ship seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage, targeting power systems, command centers, and weapon arrays with surgical accuracy. Impossible, whispered Zessa. No species fights like that. Ramming attacks are suicide. Marcus looked up from the device with the same friendly expression he used when selling chocolate. Oh, that was just the opening move. The real fighting started after we crippled their command structure. The hologram continued, showing the surviving human ships reforming and beginning what could only be described as the systematic dismantlement of an enemy force 6 times their size. They used tactics that no sane military strategist would attempt, throwing their ships into situations that should have resulted in immediate destruction, but somehow turning each desperate situation into a devastating attack against their enemies. Battle log continues. Marcus's recorded voice narrated. Enemy attempting to surrender. Surrender refused under Article 15 of the Terran War Code. This is a retaliation strike for the massacre of civilians at New Geneva. No quarter given. Captain Vracht found himself taking an involuntary step backward. He had heard whispers of the New Geneva incident, though he had dismissed them as exaggerated rumors. According to the stories, an entire human colony had been wiped out by raiders who killed everyone, including children. He had assumed it was just another minor skirmish in some insignificant border conflict. Now he was beginning to realize that there might be more to the story. The holographic battle log showed the final phase of the engagement, where the remaining human ships hunted down fleeing enemies with a methodical precision that was somehow more frightening than any berserker rage would have been. They didn't just defeat their enemies. They completely eliminated them, leaving no survivors to carry word of what had happened. Final tally. Marcus's voice concluded. Enemy losses. 200 vessels, estimated 40,000 casualties. Friendly losses. 11 ships, approximately 3,000 personnel. Mission objective achieved. All civilian deaths have been avenged. Chen out. The hologram faded, leaving the plaza in complete silence. Marcus calmly put the datapad back in his pocket and looked up at Captain Vracht with the same cheerful expression he had worn throughout the entire display. So, he said pleasantly, are you still interested in that tribute payment? Because I have to tell you, my people take a very dim view of anyone who threatens our trading partners. The silence that followed Marcus's display stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Captain Vracht stared down at the small human, his brain struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Around the plaza, other pirates shifted nervously, their earlier confidence evaporating like mist. You're bluffing, Zessa finally said, though her voice lacked its previous conviction. Those logs have to be fabricated. No species could take down 200 ships with only 37. Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if considering her words. You know what? You're probably right. Most people do think these logs are fake. The numbers seem impossible. The tactics appear suicidal, and the casualty ratios don't match anything in standard military doctrine. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out what looked like a small communications device. But here's the thing about humans. We're really good at doing impossible things when people threaten our friends. Captain Vracht's predatory instincts were screaming warnings now. This tiny creature was showing no fear, no signs of stress, nothing that indicated he was lying or bluffing. Either he was completely insane, or he was exactly as dangerous as those battle logs suggested. What is that device? Vracht demanded, gesturing at the communicator in Marcus's hand. Oh, this? It's just a standard emergency beacon. Marcus's tone remained conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. You see, when humans establish trading posts in neutral territory, we like to make sure our people are safe. so we always station a few ships nearby, just in case someone decides to cause trouble. He held up the device so everyone could see its simple design. Now, I haven't activated this beacon yet, because I'm really hoping we can resolve this situation peacefully. But if I do press this little button here, it sends out a distress signal that gets picked up by any Terran Defense Force vessels in the area. Commander Zethka found his voice. How many ships? He asked quietly. Marcus looked genuinely thoughtful. Oh, probably just 3 or 4. We don't like to overcommit resources to simple trading missions, but they're good ships, with experienced crews, the kind of people who have seen action in places like Proxima Station. One of the younger pirates, a nervous-looking Skarn named Gorth, stepped closer to his captain. Sir, he whispered urgently, maybe we should reconsider. If even half of what that battle log showed is true. Vracht backhanded the younger pirate, sending him sprawling across the plaza floor. Silence. The Skarn Brotherhood fears no one, but even as he said it, doubt was creeping into his voice. He had built his reputation on being smart enough to pick fights he could win. That was how pirates survived in a galaxy full of military forces that could crush them if they made the wrong enemies, and something about this human's casual confidence was setting off every survival instinct he had developed over decades of raiding. Tell me something, Marcus continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension. Have any of you ever heard of the Hegemony War? It ended about 6 months ago, right around the time the peace treaty was signed. Several of the station residents nodded. The war had been a massive conflict that had raged across dozens of star systems for nearly 3 years, but it had ended suddenly when one side had simply stopped fighting and agreed to peace negotiations. We humans were involved in that war, Marcus explained helpfully. Not in a big way. You understand. We're still pretty new to galactic politics, but we ended up on the Federation side when the Hegemony decided to attack one of our colony worlds. Dr. Malaka spoke up from the crowd. I remember reading about that. The report said it was a minor engagement, barely worth mentioning in the major news feeds. Marcus nodded agreeably. That's true. From a galactic perspective, it was tiny. Just one small human world against a Hegemony attack fleet. Probably not worth reporting on in detail. He paused, looking around at the assembled crowd. Of course, the Hegemony probably wishes they had never heard of that little human world. I believe it was called Kepler's Garden, named after the same explorer this station honors. Commander Zethka's head spines lifted in sudden recognition. Wait. I remember that name from the war reports. Kepler's Garden was where the Hegemony lost their 3rd fleet. The reports said it was destroyed by a Federation ambush. Well, Marcus said with a modest shrug, I suppose that's technically true. Though it wasn't exactly a Federation ambush, it was more like, well, what happens when you attack a human world and kill about 50,000 civilians before the defense forces can respond? The temperature in the plaza seemed to drop several degrees. Even the station's life support system seemed to hum more quietly. You see, Marcus continued in his friendly tone. Humans have this peculiar trait. We get very attached to places and people. When someone destroys a place we call home and kills our families, we tend to take it personally. Very personally. Captain Vracht was beginning to understand why the Hegemony War had ended so suddenly. How many ships did the Hegemony send to attack this colony world? Oh, quite a few, Marcus replied. The 3rd Fleet was their largest force, I believe. About 800 ships, including some of their biggest dreadnoughts. They wanted to make an example of Kepler's Garden. Show the galaxy what happened to worlds that sided against them. He looked thoughtful for a moment. I wasn't there for that particular engagement. Unfortunately, I was busy with some other operations, but I heard the defense was quite spirited. How many Federation ships defended the world? Dr. Malaka asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Marcus's smile brightened. Oh, there were no Federation ships there. They were all committed to other battles at the time. Kepler's Garden was defended entirely by the Terran Defense Force. The silence that followed was deafening. Zessa was the first to find her voice. How many ships? Marcus looked at her with apparent surprise. Oh, you mean how many TDF ships? Well, let me think. The colony had just been settled a few years earlier, so they didn't have a huge defensive force. I believe it was. Yes, about 30 ships. Mostly destroyers and frigates, with a couple of light cruisers. Captain Vracht felt his blood turn to ice water. 30 ships against 800. And according to the battle log he had just watched, humans considered those to be acceptable odds. The battle didn't last very long, Marcus continued conversationally. Maybe 6 hours from start to finish. By the end of it, the Hegemony Third Fleet had ceased to exist. Every ship destroyed, every crew member dead. The humans sent the sensor logs of the engagement to the Hegemony High Command along with a simple message. What message? Commander Zethka asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Marcus's friendly expression never changed, but something cold flickered in his eyes. The message was very simple. It said, "You killed our children. We killed your fleet. Send another fleet, and we'll kill that one too. Send 10 fleets, and we'll kill all of them. Keep sending fleets until you run out of ships and crews. We don't care. You killed our children." The human reached into another pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a small piece of fabric. It was black with white symbols on it. "This is a memorial patch from Kepler's garden. Every human who served in the war carried one. We wear them to remember the people who died there." He held up the patch so everyone could see it clearly. The white symbols formed words in Standard Galactic. "Remember the garden. No mercy for child killers." After Kepler's garden, Marcus explained, the Hegemony found that every time they tried to attack a human-held position, they faced defenders who fought like they had nothing left to lose. Because, you see, we had already lost everything that mattered. After that, it was just a matter of making the enemy pay for it. One of the pirates, a younger Skarn who had been listening in growing horror, suddenly broke and ran for the docking bay. Captain Vracht snarled and started to pursue him, but Marcus held up one hand. "Let him go," the human said mildly. "He's smart enough to recognize a bad situation and get out while he can." Vracht spun back toward Marcus, his claws fully extended. "You think you can intimidate the Skarn Brotherhood with stories and threats? We have raided across this sector for 20 years. I'm sure you have," Marcus agreed. "And I'm sure you're very good at what you do. Pirates have to be smart and careful to survive. That's why I'm hoping you'll be smart now and recognize that this situation isn't worth the cost." He gestured around the plaza at the frightened station residents. "Look at these people. They're traders, diplomats, scientists, doctors. They're not soldiers. They're not threats to anyone. They're just trying to make an honest living in a dangerous galaxy." Marcus's voice remained calm and reasonable, but something in his tone made it clear that he was no longer just making conversation. "But if you hurt them, if you take their money and destroy their lives, then they become my responsibility, and I take my responsibilities very seriously." Captain Vracht found himself caught between his reputation and his survival instincts. The Skarn Brotherhood had never backed down from a fight, never shown weakness in front of prey, but everything about this situation was wrong. This human was too calm, too confident, too willing to discuss military actions that should have been classified beyond any civilian's clearance level. "Prove it," Vracht said finally. "If you're really what you claim to be, prove it. Show me something that can't be faked." Marcus nodded as if he had been expecting the request. "That's fair. You're right to be skeptical. Battle logs can be fabricated, stories can be invented, and humans are known for their creativity." He pulled out his communicator again, but this time instead of threatening to use it, he actually activated it. A soft chime indicated that a connection had been established. "Marcus to TDF Patrol 7, he said into the device. "This is Chen requesting a status check." The response came immediately, in a crisp military voice that carried clearly across the silent plaza. "Patrol 7 to Marcus. We rid you 5x5. Status is green. All stations manned and ready. Is there a problem down there?" "Possibly," Marcus replied, still maintaining his casual tone. "We have some visitors who are asking for tribute payments from the station residents. But they seem to want additional verification of our capabilities." "Copy that, Marcus. Do you need us to come down there?" "Not yet, but could you give our friends here a quick rundown of your current operational status? I think they'd be interested to know what resources are available if this situation escalates." "Affirmative. Attention Kepler Station. This is Commander Sarah Torres aboard TDF Heavy Cruiser Vengeance. We are currently on station approximately 2,000 kilometers from your location, along with destroyers, Justice, and Retribution. All weapon systems are online and fully operational. We are prepared to provide immediate tactical support, if requested. Captain Vracht's eyes widened as he realized the implications. 3 military vessels, including a heavy cruiser, positioned close enough to engage any threat to the station within minutes, and they were already aware of the situation and ready to act. But Commander Torres wasn't finished. Be advised that additional TDF assets are en route to this position, including the Dreadnought Remembrance and a full destroyer squadron. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours, standing by for further instructions. The communication ended, leaving the plaza in absolute silence. Marcus calmly put the communicator back in his pocket and looked up at Captain Vracht with the same friendly expression he had maintained throughout the entire encounter. "So," he said pleasantly, "shall we discuss those tribute payments? Because I have to tell you, my friends up there take a very dim view of people who threaten peaceful trading stations." Captain Vracht stood frozen for a long moment, his mind racing through possibilities and calculations. 3 ships, already in position, with more coming, a heavy cruiser that could probably destroy his entire raiding fleet single-handedly, and a human who spoke about military operations like he had been personally involved in them. The smart play was obvious. The only play that didn't end with his entire crew dead in space. "The Skarn Brotherhood has decided that this station is under our protection," he announced loudly, his voice carrying across the plaza. "Any who would threaten these traitors will answer to us." The sudden reversal was so complete and unexpected that several of the station residents blinked in confusion. Marcus, however, just smiled and nodded as if this was exactly what he had expected. "That's very generous of you, Captain. I'm sure the station residents appreciate your offer of protection." Vracht gestured to his crew, who were still standing around in various states of shock and confusion. "Come, we have other business elsewhere." As the pirates filed out of the plaza, heading back toward their ship, Zessa paused next to Marcus. "This isn't over, human," she said quietly. "The Brotherhood has a long memory." Marcus looked up at her with the same pleasant expression he used when greeting customers. "So do we," he replied softly. "So do we." The weeks following the Skarn incident brought an unexpected peace to Kepler Station. Word of what had happened spread quickly through the trading networks, and suddenly the remote outpost found itself with a reputation as one of the safest stops in the sector. Pirates gave it a wide berth. Legitimate traders flocked to its markets, and the station's economy boomed like never before. Marcus continued running his modest shop, selling earth goods and telling his stories to anyone who would listen. But now the other residents looked at him differently. The friendly neighborhood trader was still there, still pleasant and helpful. But everyone had seen the steel underneath the smile. Commander Zethka found himself spending more time than he probably should watching the human go about his daily business. There was something both fascinating and unsettling about the way Marcus could switch so seamlessly between cheerful merchant and whatever he had been during that confrontation with the pirates. "Commander," Dr. Malaka said, entering his office with a concerned expression on her insectoid features. "I've been running some analysis on the substances Marcus has been selling. That coffee he gave you, for instance." Zethka looked up from his reports. "Is there a problem with it?" "Not exactly a problem, but it's more complex than it appears. The caffeine content is precisely calibrated for optimal neural stimulation across a wide range of species. The flavor compounds are designed to trigger pleasure responses in mammalian, reptilian, and insectoid brain chemistry. This isn't just a simple beverage, Commander. It's sophisticated biochemistry." The commander's head spines lifted thoughtfully. "You're saying a simple trading post shouldn't have access to that kind of technology?" "I'm saying whoever created this formula has an incredibly advanced understanding of xenobiology. The kind of knowledge that usually comes from extensive research programs or military applications." Before Zethka could respond, his communicator chimed with an urgent message. "Commander, we have an incoming vessel. Configuration unknown. But it's big. Really big." Zethka rushed to the command center, where the main display showed an approaching ship that dwarfed anything in the station's records. The vessel was sleek and predatory-looking, painted in deep black with silver markings. Its weapon systems were clearly visible and numerous. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. A nervous young Vorthan named Kess put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the approaching vessel. The being in the captain's chair was unlike anything they had seen before. tall and lean, with pale skin and sharp features, wearing a uniform of midnight blue with silver insignia. But what was most striking were his eyes, which held an intelligence that seemed both ancient and calculating. "Greetings, Kepler Station," the figure said in perfect standard galactic, though his accent was unfamiliar. "I am Admiral Korith, of the Void Hunters. We have come seeking information about a human who may be operating in this sector." Zethka felt his blood run cold. The Void Hunters were legendary throughout the galaxy. Though most people considered them to be myths, they were said to be the galaxy's ultimate predators, beings who hunted other intelligent species for sport and profit. If they were real, and if they were looking for Marcus. "This is Commander Zethka. What information are you seeking?" Admiral Korith's lips curved in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth that were definitely not herbivorous. "We have received reports that one of your traders is a human, named Marcus Chen. We have some business with him." "What kind of business?" "The kind that doesn't concern station commanders," Korith replied coldly. "Prepare to be boarded. We will collect this human and depart. Do not interfere." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Zethka looked around at his staff, seeing fear in their eyes. The Void Hunter's ship could probably destroy the station without breaking stride, and their reputation suggested they wouldn't hesitate to do so if opposed. "Sir," Kes said quietly, "should we warn Marcus?" Before Zethka could answer, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "Warn me about what?" Everyone turned to see Marcus standing in the entrance to the command center, still wearing his usual casual clothes and friendly expression. But somehow, standing there surrounded by worried alien faces, he looked different, more alert, more focused, more like the person who had calmly faced down a gang of pirates. "Marcus," Zethka said urgently, "you need to leave. Now. There's a ship coming, and they're looking for you specifically. They call themselves the Void Hunters." Instead of the fear or panic they expected, Marcus just nodded thoughtfully. I was wondering when they'd show up." Dr. Malaka stared at him. "You were expecting them?" "Not exactly expecting, but it was always a possibility." Marcus walked over to the main display and studied the image of the approaching vessel. Impressive ship. Definitely military grade, probably armed with quantum torpedoes and plasma cannons. The Void Hunters always did prefer overwhelming firepower. "You know about them?" Zethka asked. "Know about them? I helped design half their tactics." Marcus's tone was casual, but there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. The Void Hunters aren't what most people think they are. They're not just random pirates or raiders. They're a mercenary organization that specializes in what they call problem solving for governments that can't officially handle certain situations themselves. He gestured toward the screen. "Admiral Koreth, they're used to work with Terran intelligence. We had some joint operations during the early days of human expansion. Smart man, very effective operator, but he has some personality quirks that made him unsuitable for regular military service." The implications of what Marcus was saying began to sink in around the room. Commander Zethka found his voice first. "Marcus, what exactly did you do before you became a traitor?" Marcus looked around at the assembled station personnel, and for the first time since they had known him, his friendly mask slipped slightly. What showed underneath was something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous than anything they had imagined. "My official title was Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Chen, Terran Special Operations Command. Unofficially, I was what the military calls a problem solver. When the regular forces couldn't handle a situation, when diplomacy failed, when the enemy was too dangerous or too well protected for conventional tactics, they sent me." Dr. Malaka's translator device made a soft clicking sound as she processed this information. "You're a spy, among other things," Marcus agreed. "But that's not why Koreth is here. He's here because of something that happened during the war. Something that a lot of people would prefer to keep classified." The communications board chimed with another incoming transmission. Marcus gestured toward it. "You should probably answer that. Koreth gets impatient when he's ignored." Zethka activated the communication link, and Admiral Koreth's face appeared on the screen again. This time, his expression was less formally diplomatic and more personally threatening. "Commander, our sensors indicate that the human is currently on your station. You will release him to our custody immediately, or we will take him by force." "Actually, Admiral," Marcus said, stepping into the transmission pickup's range, Why don't you just tell them what this is really about? Korith's expression shifted when he saw Marcus, showing a mixture of professional respect and personal animosity. Marcus. Still playing the innocent traitor. I see. It's a living, Marcus replied with a shrug. Though I have to say, this is quite the ship you've acquired. The hegemony paying well for freelance work these days? A flicker of something dangerous passed across Korith's features. The hegemony wants answers, Marcus. They want to know how 30 human ships destroyed their third fleet. They want to know what technologies you're hiding, what tactics you used, what weaknesses you exploited, and they hired you to find out. They hired me to bring you in for questioning, alive preferably. But they weren't specific about your condition upon delivery. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. I see. And what happens to these people after you collect me? The station residents, I mean. They've seen too much, heard too much. Can't have witnesses to a black operations kidnapping, can you? The silence that followed that question was answer enough. Commander Zethka felt his scales bristle with sudden understanding. This wasn't just about Marcus. The moment the Void Hunters completed their mission, everyone on Kepler Station would become a liability that needed to be eliminated. You have 10 minutes to surrender yourself, Korith said coldly. After that, we board the station and take you anyway. The collateral damage is your choice. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in heavy silence. Marcus stood quietly for a moment, apparently thinking. Then he looked around at the assembled station personnel. Well, he said with a slight smile, I suppose now would be a good time to mention that my retirement from active duty wasn't exactly voluntary. Dr. Milaka's translator clicked rapidly. What do you mean? I mean that Terran Special Operations didn't want me to retire. I knew too much, had been involved in too many classified operations. They wanted to keep me locked away in some secure facility where I couldn't become a security risk. He gestured toward the view screen where Korith's ship was growing larger. So I made a deal with them. I would disappear, live quietly as a civilian trader in some remote location, never contact anyone from my old life, or reveal anything about human military capabilities. In exchange, they would leave me alone to live in peace. And now someone has violated that deal, Zethka said, beginning to understand. Now someone has violated that deal, Marcus confirmed, which means the agreement is null and void. He walked over to the communications console and began inputting commands with the kind of practiced efficiency that spoke of extensive technical training. Kess, I need you to patch me into the station's external communications array. Full power, all frequencies. The young Vorthan looked nervously at his commander, who nodded authorization. A moment later, Marcus was connected to the most powerful transmitter on the station. This is Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Chen. Authorization code Omega 77 Alpha Tango Charlie. Broadcasting on Terran Emergency Frequency 1, Marcus said into the communicator, his voice now carrying the crisp authority of a military officer. I am declaring a code black situation at Kepler Station. Repeat. This is a code black. Hostile forces are threatening civilian populations under human protection. I am requesting immediate tactical support under the civilian protection protocols. The response came within seconds, in a voice that was clearly military and clearly agitated. Marcus? Marcus Chen? Sir. We thought you were. We thought you had. I was never dead, Commander Riley. Just taking an extended vacation. But my vacation has been interrupted by some people who apparently don't understand the meaning of classified retirement status. Sir, what's your tactical situation? Marcus looked around the command center at the frightened faces watching him. I have approximately 400 civilian non-combatants under threat from a Void Hunter assault ship, Admiral Korith commanding, full military loadout. Probably planning to eliminate all witnesses after completing his primary mission. Copy that, sir. The Remembrance and her escort squadron are approximately 2 hours out. Can you hold that long? Marcus studied the approaching enemy vessel on the main display. 2 hours might be cutting it close, Commander. But don't worry about me. These people didn't sign up for any of this. Make sure they stay safe. Understood, sir. Be advised that Command has authorized me to tell you that your previous retirement arrangement is officially terminated. You are hereby reactivated to full duty status with all appropriate authorities. A grin spread across Marcus's face, and for the first time since the station residents had known him, he looked genuinely happy. It's good to be back, Commander. Chen out. He turned back to the assembled station personnel, and they could all see that something fundamental had changed. The friendly neighborhood trader was gone, replaced by someone who carried himself with the confidence of a person accustomed to life and death command decisions. Commander Zethka, I'm going to need you to evacuate all non-essential personnel to the station's emergency shelters. Dr. Milaka, I'll need a complete inventory of medical supplies and emergency equipment. Everyone else, start securing anything that could become a projectile if the station takes damage. What are you going to do? Zethka asked. Marcus walked over to his abandoned datapad and picked it up, scrolling through files with practiced efficiency. I'm going to do what I was trained to do, Commander. I'm going to solve a problem. He looked up at the approaching Void Hunter ship, and his expression was no longer that of a simple merchant trying to avoid trouble. It was the expression of a predator who had just realized that his prey had made a very serious mistake. Admiral Korath is about to learn why the Terran Defense Force doesn't negotiate with people who threaten civilian populations, and why retired doesn't mean defenseless. The station's alarms began to sound as the Void Hunter ship entered weapon range, but Marcus Chen was no longer concerned about the outcome. For the first time in months, he was back where he belonged, doing what he did best, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves, no matter what the cost. Outside the station, Admiral Korath was about to discover that some problems couldn't be solved by superior firepower alone. Sometimes, the only solution was to face someone who had spent years learning how to turn impossible odds into inevitable victories, someone who had earned his retirement by ensuring that his enemies never got the chance to enjoy theirs.